Hi, everybody. Dr. Josh Long here with AME Podcast, kind of my quest to continue music making beyond the schools and into the community. This actually is sponsored by Art and Music Emporium, serving artistic excellence. We do things like instrument repair, music lessons, and other endeavors such as the Wildwood Band, which is in Wildwood, New Jersey. We actually get community members together and play instruments, as well as things like Tuba Christmas. If you would like to stay connected with us, please like our YouTube page, or if you're on Facebook, Art and Music Emporium, you can like Art Music Emporium page there, or Joshua E. Long is also there as well. We also have a Patreon account, and if you'd like to be connected, all the proceeds go to helping people continuing making music. I'm actually very excited about our next guest. Steve Kessler is actually a retired New York State music educator. I met Steve a few years ago when I was playing in a community band, believe it or not. We were only together for a little bit in the euphonium section. And he said, I'm retiring and I'm moving to Florida. And I kind of chuckled a little bit because as I'm watching him on Facebook, I think he's more busy being in Florida than when he was in New York State. But we'll talk about that as time goes on. But please welcome Steve. And Steve, take it away.
Oh, well, thank you, Josh. I appreciate that. I have to, I have to tell you before I start babbling, what I'm going to babble right now. I have to tell you that our short time playing together in that community band was one of those times, and I'm sure any musician out there can appreciate this, because a lot of times as musicians, we don't get a chance to really elevate ourselves mentally and musically. We go, we do our thing and it's over. But the second I sat down and met you and you were playing next to me, I was like, oh, this guy's good. All right. Oh, he knows how to phrase. He knows how to blend. He knows how to, and all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I got to up my game. And I really enjoyed the chance that I got to play with someone who made me like, okay, I want to phrase with him. I want to articulate. And you don't get that chance much. And I don't think I ever told you that it was really, unfortunately, I did move, but those times when we got to play together was really good for my head. And I just want to thank you for that because it was a lot of fun. So I am, as Josh mentioned, I'm a retired band teacher from New York, and my New York experiences were too much. I don't want to bore you with all the things, but basically, um, I spent 34 years as a middle school and an elementary music teacher in New York. I spent the last 15 years in the Cornwall schools, which is outside of West Point. And before that, I was an administrator in the Valley Central schools where I was an assistant principal for a few years. And that's a story I'm just going to skip over. And it's not what I wanted to do when I grow up. Let's put it that way. But it was a really good experience. And before that, I was in the Newburgh schools. And and the wonderful thing about teaching was I had a chance to really, I think, touch so many lives. And the thing that I started thinking about when I knew that Josh had asked me to do this podcast was I thought about what was it like when I was a kid? Like what made me go in this direction? And I just want to just tell you quickly, when I was a kid, around 13 years old, I was playing baritone horn in my school band in Queens. I grew up in Queens, New York. And my parents asked me if I wanted to go to a music camp. And I was like, oh, yeah, I don't know, sure. So I went to this music camp in Oneonta, New York, called in Hartwick College, called the New York State Music Camp. And in that camp, you were literally playing in several bands, several jazz bands, several orchestras, singing choruses. You're immersed in music and you're playing music. And after a week, you put on a concert. And then next week, same thing, next week, same thing. So you were 24 hours, taking classes, the whole thing. And I couldn't wait to go back each year. I spent my whole 10 months at home counting the minutes till I went back to camp because the music was such an amazing thing in my life. And each summer I came back and it was just great. I met the greatest people who were lifelong friends. And I realized after doing this for a few years, they caught on, they liked me, and they made me a counselor. Then they made me a teacher, and I became one of the people who just up in the administration. And it was a great thing. I got to really climb the ladder in the camp. But the thing that was so cool about it when I was a kid was almost all these people that I looked up, these counselors and so on, they all went to this place called the Crane School of Music, and I didn't know what that was, but I just kind of thought, well, I think I know I'm going to the Crane School of Music because I want to be like all these people. So I was one of the lucky ones when I'm 13, 14 years old that I knew what I wanted to do when I grow up. Most people can't say that, and I am just so blessed that I had that wonderful experience. And to this day, when I'm not doing a Zoom with you, Josh, I'm doing a Zoom with my old camp buddies because we still get together once a month and we talk about the old days and stuff. But to this day, I know, excuse me, I know I can sight read like a monster because of that camp. Because when you're going from jazz to, and you're reading, so to this day, I think reading is my strongest talent or
Wow.
attribute because of all those years of just being immersed in it, and you just have to do it. So I just want to say it was a really very fortunate experience for me. And so moving on to fast forwarding through the end of my career, in New York, I was really busy. I was playing a lot, and I retired a few years ago. And my I was guest director at uh, a jazz festival up around Albany area. And I remember during the lunch break, I was talking to the guy who booked me, and I said, "Hey, I've been trying to reach you, and I can't. It keeps busy." He goes, "Oh, I was up at my Airbnb up in Lake Placid," and I'm like, "What is this Airbnb? I've heard some. This is back before it was really popular." And he explained to me what an Airbnb was, and I said, "Wow, that's so cool. I got to get me one of those." So after the jazz festival, I went back to my wife and I said, "We're getting an Airbnb up in Lake Placid." And she goes, "Okay, except we don't like winter." It's like, "Oh yeah, you're right." So let's get one in Florida. So next thing you know, we found a friend who had a realtor. We flew down to Florida and we bought a really nice condo in Florida, right outside of Disney. And we've been renting it for years and being like, so we lived in New York and we'd had people living in it. And
Mhm.
we were kind of, long distance landlords with this Airbnb. And it was really nice. And once a year, my wife and I would book like a week and we would come down just to enjoy it for a week.
Mhm.
And about 2 years ago, we went down and we said, why aren't we living here? The sunshine and the beauty and the pool and as much as I love New York, it was just like, I think it might be time. So we ended up selling the house and we just moved on down to Florida. And we've been here
Mhm.
about a year and a half now. And kind of leading into why I might be on your podcast, before we left New York, my wife said to me, you realize that you're playing every night. You're going to a place where no one knows you. You're going to be going from 100 miles an hour to zero. I'm like, oh yeah. So I love playing shows, musicals.
Mhm.
So before we left the house to move to Florida, I went online and I said, I wonder if there's a musical theater near where we're moving. And I found this town called Winter Haven. So I looked up the website and I saw the director. And so I sent him a note saying, "Hi, my name is Steve Kessler. I'm moving down to your area and I see you have a theater. If you ever need a trombone player or a keyboard player, I'd be really happy to be put on your sub list." 10 minutes later, my phone rings. I'm like, hello. He goes, "Hi, Steve, this is Dan from the Theater Winter Haven." I'm like, "Hi." He goes, "I've been stalking you. I'm on your Facebook page. You got what I want. We're doing Elf the musical next month. Do you want to direct it?" I'm like, Yeah, sure." So we got down on a Wednesday to Florida. And then Thursday, I'm upstairs at the theater meeting my cast and music directing the show. And it's like, and my wife says, you just walk into things, you just fall into these things all the time. And so this theater has been amazing. I've done, it's just theater alone. We just got done doing Little Shop of Horrors, and it went into Hairspray, then it went into Matilda, and right now we're doing Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum. And so, and I'm, just playing trombone and keyboard in all the pits if I'm not directing a show. And then because word kind of got out that I'm doing this stuff, a theater next door, like maybe 5, 10 miles down the road, asked me if I would music direct Nonsense, the musical. So I did that. And then another theater down the road asked my wife and I if we would direct another show. And right now, actually tonight after this podcast, another theater I'm going to be starting it tonight. We're doing Bye Bye Birdie, and tonight's my first rehearsal. So like word has just traveled and so when I use the word retired, I don't, I mean, I think it's retirement because I'm loving what I do.
Mhm.
And then also in this theater where I'm at this Winter Haven theater, they asked me to help teach a class to these homeschool kids. They have a homeschool class. I guess when you take homeschool, you have to have a certain amount of extracurricular things and so on.
Mhm.
So they offer a theater class to them. So I'm the music director for that. We put on a show every semester. And tomorrow, actually, we're doing Peter Pan. So that one's tomorrow. And then they asked me, they said, look, we have so many kids who like to audition for shows, but they don't know how to audition. Would you want to teach a class on how to audition for a show? I said, yeah. So I do that on Tuesdays, which starts right after the break. And then they came to me and they said, we do the summer classes. We have these summer camps, 3-week camps. Would you want to be a director for them? I was like, yeah. So, I mean, it's just been wonderful. I've just been so blessed. And just to ramble on a little bit more, so then my wife and I, when we moved down here, we joined back in New York, I played organ at a large Catholic church in Beacon, New York.
Hmm.
And down here, I decided I don't want to do that. I want to kind of go to church with my wife because I never got to spend Sundays with her.
Hmm.
So we found this really nice church called the First Baptist Church of Davenport. And we
Okay.
go there. It's a really nice, sweet church, and the preacher's up there, and but we noticed that the piano player, the worship leader, they call them down here, or maybe all over, was great. I'm like, wow, this guy's really good. So I'm sitting there like, wow, he's playing he was jazz and stuff. So I went up to him afterwards and I said, I just want to let you know, I really dig what you were doing. He's like, oh no, you're a musician. Oh, you're going to be listening. Oh, I got, so like, he's all like, no one cares what I'm doing, but I guess now someone's going to care. So I love the guy. And I used to love going to church just to listen to him. And a few months ago, I had to have knee replacement surgery.
Hmm.
And so I was out of commission for a few weeks. And my wife, after a couple of weeks, said, do you mind if I go to church? I want to just, I said, yeah, sure, go ahead. So she comes back from church and she says, hey, Steve, Danny, the keyboard player, today was his last day. He left. So I was like, oh my gosh. So I call him up and I said, Danny, you okay? He goes, yeah, it's just time for me to move on. God wants me to move on. He said, by the way, Steve, in about an hour, you're going to be getting a call from the pastor because he recommended you for the gig. So I've been doing the music worship leading thing on Sundays as well. So it's just been like, what can I step into that just, it's been so fortunate. So right now I'm loving Florida and I'm working like crazy, but it's all stuff I want to do. And now, okay, that's where I am.
Well, it's so funny because excuse me, you explain it as when you were in New York State, you're going each and every day, and there you are doing it again, even on Sundays.
Even though I didn't think it was going to happen. And and my wife sometimes says, any chance you ever want to like retire? And I'm like, I say honestly, someday I won't be able to do all this.
Right.
So,
Yep.
I'm like, I saw it happen to my parents. They were vital. And then we went out to visit them in the senior home and they were like zombies. And I'm like, that's the future.
Right.
Someday I'm going to be a zombie if,
Right.
unless, so I
Hopefully
said,
not. Hopefully
no,
not.
no, but I mean, like, hopefully, I can just keep alive. So that's
Keep it moving. Yeah.
exactly. So I guess I might be one of the good examples of your continuing adult, music education people because I'm trying my best to keep it alive.
So I got a couple questions for you. I know kind of to unpack all of this of kind of how, and you're obviously still touching live. So, I just want to say awesome that you are doing that because I mean, it's you have to say music is something special. And I think to teach somebody something special and to give them those experiences are far and few between. I will say that because I've been in many areas that maybe not so much, right? So I guess I wanted to ask, I'm going to ask a couple questions about that, but since we're talking more just about you, what has been your motivation to kind of, and I know you were a music teacher and I knew you knew very early in your life that you wanted to do music. But what has been your motivations, especially when you had a different life change, to continue? I mean, essentially, you could have easily not called that guy in the musical. You could easily say no. You know what I mean? And I don't want to say that the wrong way, not that
No,
I know it
no.
in your hearts why you do things, but I'm interested to get a little bit what motivates you.
It's I never really thought about that. I just, how
Mhm.
you're just always on the go
Yep.
and if you, that's who you are.
Mhm.
Um, I gotta say, I love, I've always loved working with kids.
Okay.
And I've always loved watching them grow musically. And like my wife used to always say to me, she would come to my winter concert and the band would sound good. And she'd come back in the spring. She goes, I can't believe those are the same kids. I mean, what
Mhm.
you do, what you've done with them and these, and I never say because you're with them every day, so you don't see
Right.
it. But
Yeah,
when
you don't
someone
see it, right.
looks at it and says, do you have any idea what, and I was like, wow. And I just love watching them with the look on their face when when they feel they've achieved something, when they know that
Uh-huh.
look what I've done. And to me, that's worth so much. And I see it with the kids I'm working with now. I'm really blessed in a way too, because these kids are, I don't want to say this the wrong way, but these are the kids who want to go to school.
Mhm.
These are homeschool
Sure.
kids, but
Yep.
they're like they're very well behaved, and they're
Yeah, right. I
so
understand.
that's not an
Right.
issue. There's no
Yeah.
need to like send them to the principal or anything because
Right.
they all want to be there. So these kids just like eat up every, if I say, let's do this, it's done. I'm like, wow, they did what I said, And let's do it this way. And like, oh my gosh, they actually are listening to me. So it's making me feel like, how can I not want to do this?
Right.
So I think it's just I've always kind of what you said. I've always done it, and it's always been who I am. So I don't think I can stop doing it. Um, so I don't know if I answered the question well, but
Yeah, you answered the question. Yeah, it's just because I guess what I'm asking, and can kind of take this, and we'll start shying away from kind of your side of it, and kind of your thoughts of you yourself was I kind of I battle this back and forth, back and forth, back and forth with all kinds of folks. Like for example, music is, it means something to you, obviously. Yet I see people who don't participate, who will stop. You know what I mean? And whether or not I've met music and music educators who they'll start teaching and that's their day job and then that's all they do. They don't do anything
yeah,
musically after that. You were not that case, because even when you were and still are an educator out there teaching, you as you were, band director, for example, you didn't stop playing your instrument. I met you playing your instrument. You know what I mean? You were out on the was it the field in the park with me playing the concerts and the rehearsals.
yeah.
So I guess like what I'm after, and I just wanted to get your side of it, is if this is anything you've dealt with either yourself or with others, it's like this continuation, because we have all these programs, fabulous programs. I'm not here dissing anything that goes on with schools or anything that's going on in the community, really. But I see this kind of fall once they're not with the institution, it stops. And I know you're teaching homeschool students right now who would not even have that opportunity to have, that music side of it. Not that the parents aren't great, but they're actually pushing them out into the music world. So I was just interested if you would maybe talk a little bit about what you've seen as far as, this in students, I guess, this kind of
Well, yeah,
encouragement to continue making music.
I'm going to take it two ways. First of all,
Cool.
I totally really like that question. I always believe that simple philosophy of practice what you preach,
Hmm.
and I think it meant a lot to this my students. I'm going to talk about me for a second.
Yeah,
I
sure.
think it meant a lot for the students to know that I wasn't just phoning this in. I did this, and
Hmm.
I would bring my real life stories. I would tell the kids about a gig I did and or something that happened. I would say, this happened to me too. And they would be fascinated to know like, what it's like in the real world. And I wanted to
Hmm.
bring my real world experiences to these kids
Hmm.
and treat them like professionals and let them
Hmm.
know, this is how I do it in the real world. So there's no reason why I can't teach you like that. So like
Hmm.
right now, to me, I want to teach you guys about how important is the sight read because that's how it is out in the real world. You want to, if
Hmm.
anyone want to do a gig, they don't have time to watch you learn the book. You need to go down and read the show. So I
Hmm.
had a bunch over the years, I had students who just sat on the edge of a chair, like, I want to do this, Mr. Kessler, I want to do this. So, what, and so I think they really got a kick out of knowing that I did this and I practiced what I preached. I tell them, do this, but I'm doing it too.
Hmm.
So what's you guys need to do this, and let me know how it goes. I'm like, you guys do this because here's what happens. This is what happened
Hmm.
when I did it. And I think the fact that they knew that I was committed and I did things made it more real for them and made them want to do the extra mile.
Right.
I never, I don't want to say not respect it, but I always was wondering why some people wouldn't want to, especially music,
Yeah.
why they wouldn't want to sing in a choir, do something, teach lessons. I'm not saying they have to,
Hmm.
I'm not saying, everyone has to do it, but it's such a great field. And I always wonder why. And there, I had so many colleagues who just, kind of what you said, once the day was over, it was over, which
Hmm.
is fine. I mean, if that works for them. But to me, I felt like this is the kind of profession, which a lot of professions where it should bleed into the rest a lot more of your day.
Right.
And again, there's nothing wrong with it. I mean,
Yeah.
if you want to turn it off, that's fine. I
Right.
just I know to be totally candid, I think I have more respect for those who did, you know, I know this is going to be aired and someone's going to like will say screw you, but I think I think if you really are passionate about what you do, you got to live it.
Hmm.
And I think kids pick up on that. Kids are, and even more today, kids are
Hmm.
so aware of like if you're on the up and up? If you're,
Mhm.
are you for real? Can you
Yep.
really can you really practice what you preach? And I believe like, well, I've sat in classes and I'm like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, but he's got a
Right.
doctorate. So, he
Right.
must, and, I remember more classes I took in college where I had brilliant doctors who were so
Right.
out of touch with real life.
Yep.
I had one professor who said, well, if your school can't afford these instruments, you need to go out and buy all these percussion. I'm like, well, we don't get, I'm sure I won't be able to because I mean, they cost
Yeah.
thousands of dollars and I'm going to be a poor
Right.
music teacher, but I mean, so there were things I remember hearing through the years, like that doesn't really hit home. But I, I love seeing the look in the kids when they know that I'm the real deal. And
Right.
then they can come to me and say, hey, you know, can you tell us about that time when such and such happened? I tell this one story to the kids and they seem to really like want to hear the story again. It was years ago, and you've been in situations like this
Hmm.
where I was on a gig. It was in a resort in the Catskills back in the 90s. And
Okay.
I was playing second trombone. And the guy playing first trombone was a good player, but they were doing it was like a Tommy Dorsey medley. So he
Okay.
had to do these famous Tommy Dorsey trombone solos
Hmm.
in part of this medley. And he wasn't doing it well. And the music director, whoever it was, was like, do it again. And the guy was, and he's like, he didn't have the patience. And he looked at me, he goes, pass the music over to that guy. And I'm like, oh, so I took it and I played the thing fine. And he goes, switch chairs. And I'm like, I feel
Yeah.
like, don't,
Hmm.
why, I felt like I shouldn't be, but I remember like how, like, right then and there, this guy, was like booted because he couldn't
Hmm.
do it.
Yep.
And it's like, for some reason, the kids are fascinated by this story that, like,
Hmm.
this guy was almost fired because he couldn't play well enough. And I got moved
Hmm.
up to his, so we've all seen stuff like that. And I just, I just, like I said, I like to bring the real life
Yeah.
stories and real life me into for the kids. And I think it really helps them grow.
Yeah,
If,
well, I have to say, like I said, and I don't want to say the wrong thing here, and I know people will watch this, but I have seen I've seen the music teachers who don't participate in music anymore, other than played their instrument enough to get to their through their job to get the degree so they can teach, and that's all they do. And I mean, granted, yes, I respect that. I'm not saying anything wrong against that, but I really do feel bringing that, I don't want to call it industrial, but the industry into the classroom is awesome, because just like you said, the students actually get to hear the negatives, the positives, that happen, and I think that is so important to show them that.
think about the people that you hang out with too. I'm thinking, as you're talking, I'm thinking about stuff. And like the people I hang out with are, the people that do what we do.
Mhm.
Not that I don't, you kind of like cling to, those who have that passion.
Yep.
I, yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And then, if you don't mind, kind of going back to that question, I know you're going to take it a second way, as far as in the eyes of the students. Then, did you want to continue a little bit with that? As far as them kind of continuing, because let me give you a little bit of a idea. And again, I'm not trying to pull anything out of you with this. Is not what I'm doing. It's more of, like, we build them up to be these fabulous music makers, okay, both in elementary school, into middle school, high school, and then they get out there and hopefully they continue kind of into this college world. And then, yeah, then after college, it seems like life happens and we lose some of them along the way. And I was just interested, and again, I know you might not be able to talk about that per se, but I'm just interested in your philosophy on, putting that in the eyes of the students,
Sure.
this music making skill.
Yeah. I have, I've told the kids, sometimes they even ask me like, what am I going I would say, you do not have to become a music teacher or a musician or, but if you enjoy your instrument, I hope you'll want to play it. There's always a community band. There's always a chance for you to play just for fun, just for
Yep.
enjoyment. I said, I play in a big band back in New York where there were doctors. It was IBM guys. Well,
Yeah.
a lot of those
Hmm.
guys were not musicians,
Hmm.
but they're engineers and stuff, and they just enjoy playing the music. And I
Hmm.
said, if that's will make you happy, if you still want to continue, you do not have to like, become go on the road with, a
Hmm.
band. And I've had over the years some wonderful students who went on to music.
Hmm.
And it's been so exciting. They still keep in touch with me, and they still say, some of the greatest moments I had were back when our middle school jazz band played for this, and I was like, that means so much to me. And I got to be honest, almost every one of them who went to like Eastman or some great school and went on to get their degree, I don't know if they've had a chance to really get the gig. I have one
Right.
student who, brilliant trumpet player, who I think is working at a 7-Eleven, and he does auditions, waiting, to get that
Yep.
gig. And
Hmm.
I have others, so a lot of these students are great, and they should be the next, whatever.
Right.
And unfortunately,
Yep.
it's not like it was. It's hard to get into the field.
Yeah.
There's no
Field's
more
hard.
big bands anymore. So if you want to be a big band player, there's no, and if you want to, so you have to find the niche. But I love the kids who have the desire and want to go on. That's
Hmm.
wonderful. They keep in
Hmm.
touch, and I just, I always say, like, so where are you right now? Oh, well, I'm working at the deli right now, and like, okay, but I think as long as the kids, you get a mixed bag. You get the kids who just
Hmm.
like doing it because my mom's making me do it. You're doing it because I kind of like it, but I don't want to do it
Hmm.
anymore. You're doing it because they might like me. But so you can't, you have all these different levels of of
Yep.
of why they're doing it. And
Hmm.
to me, really, basically, those who I see still playing in a band, or if I sit and I'm looking down the road, like as a matter of fact, like every Thursday morning back when I was living in New York, there
Hmm.
was a jam session right in my town. There was a group that got together at a local music shop, and we'd have a
Hmm.
Thursday morning jam session.
Okay.
And it was a bunch of, retired people. But the kid sitting next to me, a kid who's like in his 30s now, was one of my students.
Uh-huh.
He would sit there and he goes, "Hey, Mr. Kessler, remember when we did this tune?" And he pull out, pick up the pieces or some tune, but it was so cool to be sitting next to one of my old students making music. And he's like, "Yeah, this is, you taught me all this." And, so you see it on all levels.
Yep. Yep. Well, and that's just it. That's kind of like been my kind of path with all of this because it's like I feel for you, you're inspired by your students every day, to see them grow and especially how you said way in the beginning, watching younger students kind of grow each and every time. And then of course, once they're out in an adult world, you see them too as well. And, trying to find how to get them to make music beyond that, and that's the problem I'm seeing. And it's not that there's not community bands available, but just like you said, it's not like it used to be. Like in my town, for example, where I grew up in Bangor, Pennsylvania, which is a small little town. I mean, we had like 7 or 8 different community-based groups, from drum corps to bands, to marching bands, to concert bands, to church groups. And now there's like one or two that are kind of still surviving, and they're very small. And it's sad because I want to see them grow. I want to see people engaged. Because as it's like it's so powerful, I feel. But it's really a hard field. So kind of moving this kind of discussion, of this kind of continuing, music and everything. How do you find yourself like right now where you are? And I know you're doing everything you said you like down in Florida. And I know you've changed a little bit and I know you're doing more musicals and stuff like that. But how do you find yourself, again, I'm gonna ask motivation, and then I'm also going to ask what you feel your presence is doing. And I don't want to say this the wrong way. Please don't take this the candid wrong way. But rather than just saying no, I'm older, I'm retired, I did it, I'm done kind of attitude. And that's not you. I know that. What what's inspiring you to kind of just get as busy as you are right now and offer this to the community?
I don't do enough self-reflection,
Okay.
honestly,
That's okay.
because I don't, I honestly, I know I said this a couple of times during this podcast. It's just who I am.
Yep.
Um, I think the motivation is because I would be lost if I couldn't do it.
Hmm.
I have such a hard time saying no. My wife hates that about me. My wife says to me, next time someone asks you, just say, let me get back to you. And those words never come out. They say, "Hey, Steve, I need you." Oh, yeah, sure. What time do you need me? I never have that part of my brain doesn't say, let me
Me
let me
too.
check my book. Yeah, I'll go home and she'll say, let's practice together. No, no, like she'll like say that word a few times, yeah, yes, I can't. I think it's I don't know, is it maybe it's a part of the brain or something, but
Mhm,
I do not know how to stop. I've got to
mhm.
like I've got to just I almost feel like, oh man, I can't do that job because I'm doing this one, but maybe there's a way I could, still I um I don't know if there's if I have an answer to this. It's because
And that's okay if you don't. No, that's okay if you don't. No, and the reason why I'm asking, what I keep pinning at is it's just, it seems like, and look at it from my side, seeing you through the glass of Facebook, because I'm not down in Florida, obviously, but it's the fact of I saw you, I met you when you were so busy and so involved, and yet everyone knew you. You were involved with the community band, the Southern Duchess Community Band, and you were very active with that and very active with other programs and playing the big band. And then I just find it fascinating, and I keep poking at that because you just seem like you want to continue to add and give more to people, and it's like I don't know if it's, and I know it's who you are, and I know you don't reflect on it. I know it's hard to talk about because it's so weaved into your fabric, but it seems like you, and I'm not saying this to to I will thank you for all your service, but I'm not saying this to, make it seem like by any means I'm putting you on a high pedestal, but it's like you're contributing in so many different ways to these students, even the homeschool students, even the ones that you're doing in the musicals right now, where they're going to remember you for the rest of their lives and continue to hopefully be involved with music. And I think that has to say something, whether or not, you look at it or anything in that aspect. But I just feel that perception is like what we're missing today in the world. And I'm not saying that to like diss anybody or diss anything that's going on and color the cloud black, but I'm just saying I'm looking more of how we can continue to inspire people to make music.
That's yeah, wow. Well, I appreciate what you're saying. And again, um, I certainly am not looking for any accolades. It's just like, it's just a typical day for me.
Hmm.
I thought when you were just saying that, it's not really the same thing, but like my youngest daughter,
Hmm.
um, she just graduated from school and she's already had, within the last 2 years, she's on her second job already. And I
Hmm.
looked up somewhere where like in the first 10 years or so after graduating, the average person goes to like, I don't know, I can't even give you the number, but like back when, I know I'm older than you, obviously, but back when we graduated, you pretty much had the job and you did that for your career.
Hmm.
And it doesn't seem to be the same thing anymore.
No,
It's
it's not.
you keep trying and I wonder if that has something to do with the passion and I know it's not just music, I'm talking about just in general, life in general. Like if you're doing a career, but then you're jumping careers, like you're
Yep.
changing socks,
Yep.
how passionate can you be about that career? And are you just doing this job, looking there for the next one and looking there for the next one? And maybe the fact that I mean, yes, I did change districts, but I kept
Hmm.
doing music. I was just doing it
Yeah, the same thing.
for the
Yeah.
growth. I just wonder if that might be something that was different back when I was,
Yeah.
graduated back, 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and the only reason why I bring it, I don't mind. You already know my story, but I'm factory of that because I've hopped around to different places, and it's not. I don't think it's anything of that I've been looking for something more. It's been more of it hasn't for some reason like it just hasn't clicked, and it's awesome, and that's the reason why I kind of started this was because it's not my midlife crisis, even though you can think of it that way. But it's more of like, I've become, it's like just like you. I mean, you get your degrees, you get your music focus, and then I'm out in the world trying to help others. And I find it fascinating that it's just exactly what you said. People aren't staying in the hometown that they grew up anymore. People are moving jobs every other second. I mean, I'm not the only one. I have friends all the time that, even that are on my CV, that are my references, that I have to call to make sure they're still at, or message, I should say message, because we don't call too much anymore, but still at at the colleges or where they're at, because they change jobs too all the time. And it's not, I don't think it's anybody is doesn't want to help the students, but I feel like sometimes it's like that's what I'm looking for too, is trying to find a way to just kind of continue harnessing people because I had a dedicated band director in high school and honestly, he brought me up to this. He even helped me get into college. And I feel that I probably wouldn't have gotten to where I'm at right now. And of course, I had great educators in college and moving on, you get where this is going, but we are seeing that. We are seeing the next day someone's in the classroom and people are changing jobs all the way. And yet I'm seeing this net of music making, and I'm just hoping that that's not going to become that too. You know what I mean? Where you're going to do it one day and the next day not. You get where I'm going with this, and where it's going to fizzle away as
I'll
no
tell
offense, like the big bands, like you said, there's no more big bands anymore. Well, that kind of fizzled out a little bit, and it's nothing against, they do exist, but it's not like it used to be, if you get my drift. But
there's a friend, I don't think you know her, but she just moved down to Florida too. A friend of ours from the area,
oh, okay.
street player, and she found a job down here, and she was all excited because I actually I helped her find the job, and she said I got this. I said, tell me about it. She goes, well, I think after I've looked at the job, I don't think I want to do it because they have me in 11 different schools.
Oh,
And
wow.
I'm like, what? She goes, yeah, I'm
Hmm.
like a morning here, a morning, and like I don't blame you one bit. 11. She goes, yeah,
Yeah.
that's what, and then the next one is, if I hang in long enough, I could be in 7 schools. I'm like, well, no, I don't blame you one bit. And I'm thinking, I wonder if that's another way that they're kind of, now
Hmm.
because there's such a need for teachers out here
Yep.
and they can't fill positions, they're just plugging people
Yep.
into spots and there's no thought. So
Hmm.
my poor friend who's so excited about getting a job, she said, I really can't do this. She found another job, fortunately,
Hmm.
but I'm like, I wouldn't do I mean, who could possibly do 11 schools in a week?
Right. I know.
I don't even
And
know how
keep
you
that
could.
straight.
Exactly, 11 bit different principles, so, but I just wonder if if the fact that there's such a glut of, there's, I mean, not a glut, there's such a need for teachers that since no one's going into the
Yep.
profession anymore, that
Yep.
could be a statement on it as well, that maybe there's just not that passion that we have had.
Yeah, right. Right. Well, and that's what gets kind of concerning with me. And again, by any means am I trying to feel like I'm saying that the school districts are doing anything wrong. I know everyone's dealing with
Right.
lots of issues.
They're
Okay.
trying to survive.
They're trying to survive. That's exactly it. I mean, just like you said, I mean, they have a position like that because that's what they need, and but like, back in the day, I had band every day. I mean, every day. I don't even think that's the case too much in the Northeast anymore. So, and it's not, again, it's not anything against. I know again, I'm not blaming any of the teachers there. I know they're holding their own, they're trying to do the best they can, and the administrators, and I get all of that. But it's hard because it's like, you know, I keep going back to this side of like, what's going to happen with the generations that come up? You know, like, are they going to want to continue to make music anymore? Is there going to be bands anymore? Is there going to be choirs? Or is it going to be, and will it be totally gone? I don't think so. But we've seen a downfall. I mean, just what you were talking about, the big bands. I just want to just share this with you. Like, I knew friends who, I grew up below the Poconos, who played in the Poconos religiously every weekend. They'd have bands. I mean, they had little tiny bands all over the place. And I met he passed away now, but one of my good friends, he was like he created a band, and it was so funny. He was like, "Oh, I played in the school band, but I played in the community." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And the reason is he got taught privately, and then he played in the high school band because he was going to high school, but he played all these gigs up in the Poconos, and he made boatloads of money, doing it. And I know it's not necessarily about money, and we're talking, but of course we all have to eat and live, and we have to all do that. But he was so busy, and now you
Mm.
might see one here and there, you know, and it's just like, I get worried because I don't want to see a decline where, the opportunities and the way way you touch students to understand music and help them, just like you were explaining before about teaching them how to audition, even, you know what I mean? To get that where that's going to get lost, whether it's band, choir, the arts, whatever. It doesn't really matter. I just don't want to get that lost because I feel it's such a big outlet. And that's my
Yeah.
soapbox.
No, and you're so right. And it's so interesting as you're talking, and I'm thinking about all these things that correlate. Like one thing you just mentioned, which is kind of scaring me a bit, is in this theater where I'm working, this where I'm doing all this playing,
Hmm.
the they have a live pit and it's wonderful.
Hmm.
And the director of the theater, the guy who hired me, he gets in front of the audience and he says, as one of our mottos, our philosophies here is we will always have live music because we believe it's an integral part of live theater.
Hmm.
And the other theaters I'm all in, it's all tracks.
Yep.
And I'm thinking, I don't remember tracks when I was a kid. Or
Right.
even as a young man, or
Right.
even an older man,
Right.
it was
Mhm.
always, a pit.
There's always a
And
pit. Yeah.
and I'm thinking the way kind of what you're saying is like, the opportunities could be, are dwindling even as we speak.
Right.
Even a pit musician could easily go to tracks, and that's very sad if that happens because it's
Yeah.
such a beautiful thing about having live music with a show.
Yeah.
It's just,
Right. Right, because you can't. I mean, that's the side of it. You can't really captivate, as you know. I mean, I'm speaking to you obviously, but you know more than me. But it's like you can't. There's something to be said about that live music. And again, I know you're not blaming those other places, but it's like
oh,
whatever the finances or can't
the
find
sound.
musicians or whatever it is. You
Right.
know what I mean? It's the challenges that they're running through, but at least they're offering the programs. And
Exactly.
that's the
Oh,
one thing.
I mean, like this theater I'm in tonight, it's after I get done teaching my cast, it's going to
Hmm.
go to tracks. And, I understand that it's a small theater. I don't think you could fit
Yep.
more than the two players in there anyway. But this, again, I'm not knocking. I'm just scared to see that even the
Yep.
places that pride themselves on having pits might eventually say, well, why spend the extra money when we could just
Yep.
run the tracks? And that to me that hits home because that's such a
Yeah.
passionate part of my life here.
Your life, right? And
Yeah.
again, it's not, and one thing, and I will just share this, in my hopes, and again, like my quest too. It's like I just hope people will realize the importance of live music and realize the importance of the music classes or whatever experiences that they get in school, or via community groups or wherever they get it, and they'll continue making that music, or if they can't, or just like us who make music too, we'll go out and support it, because I think that's an integral part of it too. Because if there's no need for it, right, it's the whole supply and demand thing, right? But if there's no need, but it's nice that it's still happening, and it's still, I think, will continue. I just get worried because, as more and more challenges in the world, and again, this is way for another podcast. You know what I mean? But the more challenges in the world will happen, I just don't want to see it, and I don't think you do either.
You know,
See it disappear.
what I'd also would and not recommend, but if it's possible, if you find yourself living down this, not saying blinders, but this is the way you
Yep.
go. If you can try to expand beyond what you think here's what I'm getting at is like this is now a selfless promotion. My wife and I were doing a musical. She's a musician too. She's a keyboard player. She's
Hmm.
great. And I was busy doing a show at this one theater, and she was actually doing she was the music director at another theater, and she would come home and practice the music. And I'm like, what are you playing there? And she goes, oh, this is the music for that show. And I'm like, I could write a lot better than that garbage. And I'm like
Hmm.
listening to this, like, and so she got done with the show, and I said to her, let's write a show. She goes, yeah. And so my wife is a very great, she writes great. And I really feel like I write really good music. We put our heads together. We came up with a theme. She wrote the story. She helped me with some music. And the next thing you know, we have a musical and
Awesome.
we've already shopped it. We already have a publisher who wants to publish it. And and we have a couple of theaters around here who think they want to put it on. But what I'm kind of saying is like, just when you think this is as much as you can do, don't be afraid to like, if you,
Hmm.
try other things too, because sometimes you might be really happy with the results.
Right.
So right now we're really excited because now we have a possible, we could have a musical that's published and done
Hmm.
by, a school out in Oklahoma, and
Yeah.
so we're excited
and
about
and
it.
and not to say this the wrong way, because this by any means is a selfish plug for you, but I'm just saying, like, when you were 9, 13, when you were thinking about being a musician, did you ever think you were going to write a musical?
I barely knew how to finger the baritone horn and how to move the triple and slide. I no, absolutely no, seriously, no, I never thought about this. This was a
Mhm.
whole new. I have, I think I write and I
Yep.
am published, but that's all jazz band stuff and it's all stuff that I really enjoy doing. But all of a
Mhm.
sudden, this is like out of my comfort zone,
Uh-huh.
and I can't wait to do the next one. So we're like already,
Mhm.
we're already, hanging up stickies over for new topics for our next musical and stuff. It's like, so that keeps us excited too. So, I think another kind of what I'm saying is like, try to find excitement
Mhm.
maybe, your little bag of tricks is good, but if you can open up that bag, you
Mhm.
might find it makes you even more content and more enjoying life. Because
Mhm.
I'm certainly an example of it.
Yep. Well, it's like, and you were actually asking me about this early, and please, this is not a selfish plug either, but it's the same kind of thing too. It's like why I started this podcast because it's like I meet people such as you who are just so passionate about music, and it's like I want their story to be told. And whether or not anybody's going to watch this, I have no idea. A few here and there or whatever, but it's at least it's out there, and I'm hoping that people will kind of connect with music that way and continue to connect because it's just it's when you're
I,
narrow minded it's like, and I was very narrow minded. Oh, was I narrow minded when I was in school and coming out and everything. And it's like I've had, which not necessarily want this for anybody, I have had experiences that have not been so fun, and it's just you learn how to recoup, and it's good that you are seeing that, and just like you, it's like, oh well, let's write a musical, like why not, like put it out there. And it's like I said, it's not a prestige thing or whatever. It's more about just offering, I feel, to the community, you know.
I, I also think it's a way to just keep this going.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's an expression about like I'm ready to like hit the rocking chair,
Uh-huh.
and a lot of people just think, okay, I'm gonna spend the rest of my life just watching the grass grow, which is that's wonderful.
Right.
If you want to just calm down and stop your life, I'm just not ready to let the watch the grass grow under my feet. I want to just keep planting more seeds and
Yeah,
doing stuff.
planning more. That's awesome. Well, and
Yeah.
and like I said, I'm not. I will have to say, I hope I'm gonna, when the time comes for me, I hope I'm gonna be right where you are because I'm the same way. I don't like to stop.
Yeah.
It's like, that's why I've heard from a few people, and this is a good thing that retirement is actually busier than your normal job. So it sounds like that is for you too
I,
as well.
I can honestly say it's true. At least in my case, it is.
So kind of how, as we wrap this up, I just wanted to kind of, you bring a lot of great things. I mean, obviously, like I just want to say, I appreciate, I know I have never been under your baton, under your instruction, but from I know as a friend and playing with you, it's like you're just very passionate about music. That's why I was so excited that you could do this. And I appreciate that because you've offered so many to so many people. And, I know I wasn't one of your students, but, I could just, you made the comment in the beginning of this about how standing next to me with, playing, and this phrasing stuff, which, I always feel I'm still an amateur, but I feel like, I felt that from you just sitting next to you. And I know we didn't talk as much, but when we started talking, and this is, even your states away from where I'm at right now, and we're still talking and kind of sharing. And I appreciate that because I think that's important to know. And but as we kind of end, I just wanted to see what your thoughts are, as far as, and it could be you, it could be for students, however, where you want to go with this is, again, I keep coming back to how we can continue people getting involved with music. And I don't know if you have any words of wisdom, as far as anything you can tell anybody, or thoughts or experiences, just because, like I said, not I'm just like you. I want to see us as humans to continue this craft, you know, and make it
Well,
something worthwhile.
I think if 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 people can try to pursue it, I think this and what I'm trying to say poorly is if we could start putting the phones down and putting the things that suck our creativity away and focus. I mean, I'm guilty. I'm on the phone a lot. So we all are.
We all
And
are.
but I don't live on it. And I think if we could learn to, okay, it's a nice tool to have a phone or computer, whatever. But if you want to keep this growing, I think going on and just, like I said, just trying to find a way to keep playing your instrument. I think for most people, I think I saw this so many times, like saying, so many people just regret not continuing. It's like one thing that they wish they would have not given up in school, or you know,
Mhm.
I wish if I could go back and just tell kids, don't quit. You know, I know you want to, you want to have a study hall, you want to do this. It's not cool, but I can almost guarantee you that you're going to look back at this and say, I was really stupid for quitting. I was
Mhm.
really, even though I don't want to become a professional musician, it's something you'll always have. That clarinet will always be there, and you can always,
Mhm.
dust it off and play it. I just think it's so good if you can keep these mental juices going in your head and limit the amount of non-thinking you do, and use just if you can teach yourself that this is a great suggestion to just try to be creative here and not let this thing, create for you.
Mhm.
So I just, it's almost impossible to teach the younger generation because we are so glued to our phones and so on,
Mhm.
social
Sure.
media. But I think if someone can actually make the separation and realize, yeah, I think I could do both, but
You do both, yeah.
it's a hard thing to convey.
Mhm.
I don't know if I said anything there.
No, well said. I mean, well said. I mean, I agree with that. Creativity is important. I mean, it's
It's being sucked out of us.
yeah. Oh, it is. Yeah. And I mean, I know you can be creative on your phone. I know you can be creative with technology, but it's just like you said, there's something to be said about picking up an instrument
You
and
know,
playing it.
just really briefly mentioning that, like back when I used to write, I used to use most people who were young won't know this, but like back in college, I'd have these large manuscript papers, like, the
Mhm.
size of a kitchen table,
Yep.
and you'd be scoring your concert band piece or your jazz band piece, and your brain would have to hear all this stuff. And it
Yep.
was so great. And as Finale and all these other music technology
Yep.
softwares came out, I joined them, and it did the thinking for me. It was I was and I think a lot of my creativity got less because I got to hear it say, "Oh, that doesn't work," and I was able to fix it because the computer played it back for me.
Right.
And I miss those days. I mean, it's my fault. I could still write by hand if I want, but I don't
Right.
think anyone does anymore.
No.
So
No.
I'm an example of creativity being sucked out of me. I let the computer do more of my work for me when I write. So,
Mhm.
I kind of almost like I'm being a hypocrite in a way, by saying that.
Well, you're trying to be, the one thing is you're trying to do things faster too, because when you write it out and you put it there and you put it right on Finale, you can change that note real quick,
Yeah,
without
right.
scratching it out and but no, I get what you're saying. I mean, it's definitely it definitely does that to us, technology, but it's good. And one thing I will add, and I know you know this, but there's tons of groups out there. There's tons of ensembles, even if you stopped playing. I mean, the New Horizons bands. We'll just talk about that are actually for retired folks, by the way. But I know not for you because you've been playing so much. But there are for retired folks that who can come out and just learn to play an instrument if they regret that they never did. So,
And I love your Wildwood thing. I wish I could have been a part of it. I wish I didn't move because I think it's so cool that you do that. And
oh well, thank you. Well, keep it in mind. I will say this, not to, throw this out there. It is only like a 2 or 3 day event. So it's something that you can come and participate. I'm just putting that out there with you if you ever get
excellent.
up that way, you know. So
I'm all yours.
yeah, we do speaking of that, we do, like I said, a rehearsal on Friday and a gig on Saturday. So it goes pretty quick. But
That's
well, all
awesome.
right. Well, thank you so much, Steve. I appreciate it. And like I said in the beginning, I know you keep joking about this thing, but continue being who you are. I mean, I'm just going to say that to you because, you're offering so much to everybody,
Well,
so
it's been a real pleasure talking to you, and I hope I hope we can do this again. I had a great time. Thank you,
yeah,
Josh.
definitely. All right. Thank you so much, Steve.
Take care.